This is Z, the previous grand champion of the Colosseum Hackathon. So he has a ton of recent insight and knowledge as to exactly how the system works, what happens after you win, what to focus on, what not to focus on. I think he's going to have a few spicy takes today as well. He said so himself, and I think I've heard a couple of them, and I do agree with some of them. So very happy to have him here. I think you are on for almost a full hour, half an hour-ish.
However long people want.
However long people want. Yeah. Ask many questions as you can. He is local here to Toronto as well. So it's really cool to have a Canadian at the top of the podium for the Colosseum Startup Competition. Thank you again. Fib, do you want to do some talking?
Absolutely.
There we go.
Thank you, Simon.
Nice, thanks.
That was our incredible Superteam Canada lead, Simon. I'm Fib. I lead BD and startup programs for Superteam Canada. I'm very excited as well to have Z with us. And please note that we are live streaming this, so if you could try to stay seated and minimize noise other than like questions, that would be great. And we're joining you from Spark North in Toronto, which is a one-day startup acceleration boot camp full of workshops. And 2 of our key workshops today will be live streamed, starting with Z from TAPEDRIVE. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for having me on today. I was asked to give this talk. I gave this talk a little bit earlier. Some of you might have seen it. If you haven't, that's great. If you have, I apologize. Some of the content is duplicated, but I do have some additional spicy takes in here. So yeah, I'm Z. I started TAPEDRIVE. I'll talk a little bit more about what TAPEDRIVE is, but it's not the core of this conversation. This conversation is in particular towards anybody building towards the hackathon. And I want to, like, my goal today is to set you guys up for success so that at least one of you places, if not all of you. That would be amazing. So having gone through the accelerator myself, I sort of have a little bit of an opinion on how a team could place and potentially do better with regards to just, winning that grand prize. And also your goal really should be to get into the accelerator. So yeah, let's get started. So a little bit about me. I've been a developer for about 20 years now, working in all sorts of different domains. I had the opportunity to build a ton of huge products that are used by probably millions of users at this point, just because I previously had worked at digital agencies, and that meant that I got to touch new products every 4 months. Some of the things that I worked on, Starbucks, Chipotle, Jeep. I worked for banks like Santander. So really got a broad scope of different experience doing all of that. Over the last 5 years, I've been on the Code Wallet team. So I got to work on payments on Solana. And in particular, what I worked on was the instant payment infrastructure. So if you're doing instant payments or anything like that, or you have any questions about durable nonces, I'm your guy. I think on Solana, we probably had bought more durable nonces than any other team, probably like in excess of 500,000 durable nonce accounts. So yeah, anything regarding instant payments, like, come talk to me. So what is TAPEDRIVE? TAPEDRIVE basically aims to enable you to do more on Solana by opening the door to anything that is storage driven. So when I say storage driven, I don't mean just family photos and things like that. I mean social media type posts. So if you want to do Twitter posts or anything like that, traditionally you could never do that within the blockchain itself. You would have to store that data externally, which means that you can't really use it as a traded asset. You don't have ownership of your tweet. So TAPEDRIVE aims to open a door for that type of thing. So current workflows require you to do a lot of steps to get to your actual data, whether it's ROE, Filecoin, your database. TAPEDRIVE sort of aims to remove that barrier, remove the cost barrier as well, because that's pretty ridiculous. And the main insight is that I've heard this often, there's only 6 things possible on Solana, and that's true for the most part for everything that's been done to date. But I think if Solana is going to continue to be a general compute engine, it needs access to something different. So this was my attempt at doing something different and allowing that to happen. But enough about TAPEDRIVE. Let's focus on what it takes to win the grand prize. And in my case, it was doing something quite different to get the attention of people. In particular, Alessandro here works on some of the core stuff within Solana. So like getting recognition from him and then having people retweet that really, I think, helped me. So my biggest recommendation to you today is try weird things. Like if it feels weird, if it feels like it doesn't have a use case, chase after that, because maybe there's something there that no one's done. The only warning I would give you is that sometimes things that haven't been done before are tar pits. And what that means is that sometimes people stay away from certain subjects because they don't actually make any economic sense. But you should still try to do something that is totally different, because that's how you sort of get a little bit more time in front of the judges when they look at 300 different launch pads and you're doing something different. And when I say different, there was a team that submitted an entry where they wanted people to take pictures of their own poop in the toilet so that they could potentially train data on recognizing colon cancers and various other things. So very different, but obviously like they got the time of day with the judges. They didn't end up getting further along because there was a fundamental barrier in detecting colon cancers where you would have to ask people to poke their poop, and it was sort of crossing the line at some point. But honestly, try different things, because the launchpad thing has been done to death. If you're doing a launchpad, I'm so sorry. And get the community involved as soon as you can. I don't think I did a good job of that. I'm sort of an introvert, so for me that was a difficult one. But if you're a social butterfly, this might come easier to you. Those are just some high level recommendations. And if you do everything right, you'll end up winning the grand prize. But this should not be your goal. Like if you're here today because you want to start a company, and even the grand prize at like 50K is not going to make a dent. And a lot of the existing accelerator teams, they didn't win first in their category either. So placing first or getting the grand prize, that should not be your goal. Your goal should be to get into the accelerator. So I'll loop back on to what my recommendations are for that, but I want to talk a little bit about my experience of like what is the accelerator. So before you decide whether you actually want to go for that, let's take a look at what it actually means. So my own personal journey into the accelerator had me feeling like this guy right here, where you're sort of doing your own thing for a while and then you get scooped up and you're like, oh, this is a different world. So for me, it was a difficult journey to just decide if I wanted to do this. I was working for a team that I really enjoyed working with, doing a lot of their core infrastructure, people that felt like family to me. So at one point I felt like I was abandoning them, and it took a lot of like mental decision making to make sure that I actually wanted to go down this path. And honestly, like if you're not used to the paperwork, it can be daunting. Like once you, as a Canadian especially, if you decide you want to go down this path, you need a US C Corp, which means that you need to set up all the paperwork for the US side so that you can get the investment. And then you also need to deal with, okay, I'm a Canadian citizen. How do I become an employee? I need a Canadian company. So that means setting up all the Canadian paperwork as well. So you're gonna need some help, and it's good that you guys are in this room. Superteam can definitely help out there. But once you decide to make the journey, it sounds like they want to keep using this space. So that there's a photo here of like what you see when you get up the elevator. I don't know if they're actually going to keep using this space, but if they do, they're really warm and welcoming. If you end up going during the summer like I did not heed their warnings for the weather, so I showed up in like shorts and a t-shirt. It was cold. 13 degrees is what it was when I got there, and I was like, I am underdressed. So that would be my advice. Just make sure you actually read the messages they send. The accelerator itself is incredible. It's like living this day in, day out. You get to meet lots of new people, lots of cool founders. It's not just the people that are part of the accelerator that are going to be there. You're going to meet people that have been past winners that are continuing to use the same space. There's going to be lots of friends just dropping in. So huge benefits to doing this. But you guys are sort of familiar with this because it feels like the super team space. So anyways, let's get into how Superteam can help. So Fib, I think, was a huge help to me winning this, because this cheat sheet was my life. Like I was literally trying to figure out, like, what do I need to submit? When do I need to submit it? What is the criteria for what they're looking for? It was all in here, and I could not have done it without this, like, seriously. Beyond that, the super team also has access to cheaper audits and the lawyer paperwork. They can definitely help you with that. But I think all of you guys are already aware of that. So this is more for anybody watching online. So yeah, advice for the next batch. And I sort of mentioned this a little bit. You're going to be working towards an accelerator. Like that should be your goal. So if you look at what the entry rate is to get into the accelerator, there was over 1,400 submissions. So if you do the math, 10 teams got in. You're looking at a fraction of a percentage acceptance rate. So my advice would be to really think strategically around how you can actually get in. More about that later, but you should also be following the people that are running the accelerator, because they're going to give you amazing advice on Twitter. They're going to comment on certain areas that are interesting today and topics that maybe you've learned about recently that sound like they're awesome ideas, but potentially could be something that's been done to hell and back, and maybe you shouldn't be doing that. And then the last advice on this page is I didn't really appreciate this until I did the accelerator. And I think a lot of people are sort of set back by this, but in Solana, everybody's launching a token. And my realization after the accelerator is that every single founder is like, do not launch a token. If you do launch a token, it's a one-way door. You can't go back out. You're going to have people, expecting certain things of you. So if you really need a token, think about it carefully and make sure you set it up for success. It is a very difficult thing to set up properly. I've had even the Solana Foundation guys reach out and say, maybe slow down on this. Like, if you want to do it correctly, you might need to set up like a Cayman Island situation, and that costs money. It's like $300,000 to do that properly. So yeah, like if your mechanism revolves around a token, like really think carefully around that. So I've mentioned this before. If you're doing a launch pad, this is Maddie. He's one of the core members of Colosseum. He's basically telling you don't do a launch pad. And something like 400 submissions last round were launch pads. And I cannot imagine that they got a lot of time during the review process. So if you're doing something like that, you're probably setting yourself up for failure unless there's something super, super different. Like if you're doing something that hasn't been touched, something that hasn't been done, then by all means keep doing that. But just know what you're setting yourself up to if you're going after that. So beyond that, this is a spicy take. I personally started my career as a game developer. I worked at AMD because I wanted to do graphics and game engine architecture. I wanted to do high performance game engine systems. I spent years in the gaming industry myself, went to SIGGRAPH, went to GDC. So like, I'm a gamer, and I wanted to submit a game for this hackathon, but eventually chose not to. And it wasn't because of this reason. It was only after I got through the accelerator that I realized that gaming is actually really challenging. My conversation with Maddie about this was, I wish there was more games in crypto. Like, why are people not submitting? And he's like, they are submitting, but we're choosing not to select them because most of the time it's just a game with tokenomics slapped on, right? So if you are building a game, just recognize that you're submitting to a challenging category. I'm not saying don't do it. I have a huge amount of respect for games. I have a love for it. I would like to see more in this space, but just having worked with a guy who now works at Parallel, who runs Wayfinder, my conversations with him around him building, on a team that's working on a game is a very challenging space. Crypto is a game on its own. It's a casino. Shoving a casino into another game, you basically have 2 layers of gaming, and making that work right has not been figured out yet. So if you're going for gaming, just recognize it's not an easy category. Just because people don't submit to it doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy win. So something else that I've seen come in a lot recently is flywheel mechanics. So, do you guys know what flywheels are? It's basically you have a token and you have some kind of mechanism to burn the token to encourage people to buy more tokens or something like that. First of all, like from a legal standpoint, like gray area. But secondly, like I think this is probably going to be like a major category for the next hackathon. I would try to maybe not make this your core mechanic. But yeah, like beyond this, I think you should, submit to the hackathon if you're thinking about it. You're going to learn a lot. Like I felt like I went through a year of learning after doing the hackathon. The hackathon dates, by the way, are down here. So you got some time until it starts. But some advice that I want to give before this talk ends, I kind of want to go back to this screen. So if you're wanting to start this as a business and you're thinking, I want to get into the accelerator, my chances are really slim, consider submitting to Eternal. So Eternal is valid right now. So if you have a product that's ready to go and you're just waiting for that date, maybe consider submitting it right now, because I think the entrance rate is like 10%. So it's way higher. You're going to get time of day. They're going to, give it more presence when they're reviewing it. And let's say you do the hackathon and you feel like it's not ready on that submission timeline, maybe wait a month, submit it under Eternal and see if you get into it. The downside of this is you're not going to get the amount of attention that you would if you were submitting as part of a hackathon. And if you end up, winning one of the categories, you get a lot of eyes. But as part of Eternal, you get more eyes in front of the judges. And I think that's important if what you're trying to do is get into the accelerator. So I think that's the end of my my talk. If there's any questions, I'd love to answer any questions that you have. I really want to make sure that at least one team here places. I think your odds are really high, especially considering you're in this room already. You're doing all the right things to get into the accelerator. So yeah, without any more slides, any questions?
Yeah, I see, like, all relates to your experience, and what was the most valuable thing for you from the accelerator?
So I had accidentally chosen a seat, like it was a crowded room sort of situation. Like I came in late during the day and I picked a random seat that was open, and it ended up being like right between the judges. Like Maddie was on one side and Mike Wrinkle on the other side. So I got to ask them questions all the time. And at one point I pitched a launch pad and they were like, yeah, maybe don't do that. So I was like, I'm really confused what to do with TAPEDRIVE. I don't know what direction to take it in. Maybe I should do a launch pad. And they're like, no, don't do that. So if you do get into the accelerator, don't be shy. Like sit next to the judges. It makes all the difference. There was one more person with a question. Yeah.
I'll jump in. So you said you don't really, or at the time you didn't know what to do with TAPEDRIVE. Has that changed? Are you pursuing it as a venture, or?
Yeah, so TAPEDRIVE started as a joke. So it started because like Anatoly does these funny memes every April Fools, and it was April at the time, and I came home and I was like, I want to put JavaScript on Solana because that would be funny. It's like the fastest blockchain in the world, and JavaScript's like the most slop thing there is. So I thought that would be funny, and my goal was to make JavaScript run in the blockchain. And at the time, I couldn't figure out a way to do that without storing the source code in it. And so like my initial take was, okay, what would it take to just put this code in here without having to pay an atrocious amount. Like 1 megabyte on Solana is like $1,000. So you don't want to just throw a megabyte in there. So TAPEDRIVE came out of that. I put together like this really hacked version, and then that ended up leading into the actual product. But when I landed there, what ended up happening was you have all these founders come in and they're like, and I think you'll hear some of this later, you're probably going to change your vision at some point and adjust based on the feedback that you get. And that's only natural, and you should chase after things that actually get reception. But I ended up getting that feedback all the time from like the mentors that were coming in. They're like, oh, it's okay to change direction. And so like for a month, I was just going in a circle like, oh, wait, everyone's telling me to change direction. Should I change direction? And then eventually I came to the conclusion that, no, this thing is good. It just needs a little bit of adjustment. So to answer your question, yeah, I didn't know what to do with it initially, but I think there's a space for it. Like one of the realizations is that all of the storage networks are focused on storing family photos or data or like AI training sets, big chunks of data, and no one's really focusing on enabling data within the blockchain itself. So I think that's where TAPEDRIVE has like a chance to be different. So yeah.
In one of the previous talks, we were discussing like co-founder versus founder, pros and cons.
Yeah.
You obviously started this as like a joke, so you probably weren't thinking that far ahead.
Yeah.
But have you had anybody come to you about like potentially becoming a co-founder, or were you like looking for one, or like what point did you like want to go it alone?
So it's not that I wanted to go it alone. I had worked at several startups in the past, so like I know the startup culture, and it wasn't like I decided, hey, I want to solo this. No, I would have preferred to do this with a co-founder. But like once you're racing down, the hackathon solo, at some point, like it just doesn't make sense to look for co-founders if you're already like halfway through the product. So after winning the accelerator, that kind of continued, and it was just like, I would love a co-founder, but the opportunity hasn't materialized. And there was definitely people that were interested. But having a good network of advisors, like I still, keep in touch with the Code Wallet team. I still maintain a good friendship with the guys at Parallel. And then several people from the Solana Foundation have also been really eager to like learn more and help out. So I think there's an opportunity there in the future for a co-founder. I just haven't found one. So I don't know if that's bad. Like honestly, don't do it solo. I don't think that's anybody in this room, but yeah, that wasn't a decision that I made.
From all the people that you met when you went down there after, were a lot of them co-founders?
Yeah, like literally everyone had a team. Some of them had like 6 people on the team. So it was like, okay, a lot of people consider this a lot more serious than I probably did. Some of them worked towards this for months ahead of the hackathon, like you could tell. So, yeah.
And, I mean, your experience proves that solo that team, right? So
yeah,
there's some.
Yeah. You could do it solo, but I don't want to keep doing it solo. Like I've been in a position where I've grown teams several times in my life. I've had a team of like a dozen developers under me. So I'm aware that I can get there. I just wouldn't recommend doing it solo. If you have the opportunity to work with someone else, like go for it. So.
No. Good for you. I think we have a bit more time, so I'm going to ask like a story time from you, if that's okay.
Of course.
So you went through the whole process of the hackathon, incredibly stressful. I know like you had the cheat sheet from Fib, but you were working a full-time job, you were raising a family here in Toronto, and you're doing this hackathon solo, like basically a startup.
Yeah.
And then you win. Can you talk me through like the first few days of like handling the inbound that I'm sure it came?
Yeah.
How did you filter through the noise and actually respond to the people that you needed to respond to? And then what like major decisions did you have to make? Because obviously you went to the accelerator program. how was like the logistics of that? How long was that? How long were the days? Who were you working with? And then like at the end of it, you came home. What's the next steps from there?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I don't know if this is unique to me, but like when I got, like, first of all, they'll message you secretly internally if they're thinking about you potentially doing this. And when I got that message, I was like, I don't believe you. Like, is this like a con? Like I legit thought for a while, like, did someone get like my Telegram and is like pulling my strings here? Like, is this actually the right team? So for the longest time, I thought that it wasn't serious. And then, after the public announcement, that's where it was like, okay, I guess this is happening. It's time to get more serious about it, time to like lawyer up, time to, start working on a team. And one of the first things that I started doing was recognizing that I can't do this solo, just getting involved with the community. And so far, I think a third of the commits have come from community contributions. So that's been super helpful. If you have an opportunity to do that, like grow the team externally as well, definitely go for that. But as far as, how do you do this with, like, if anyone's working a full-time job here, I recognize that that's hard. Like, I was putting in hours at crazy times a day, got into fights with family who like didn't appreciate what I was trying to do. And, like after a few months of doing this, like the time just like disappears. And eventually they were like, oh yeah, nice for you. Like everything comes so easy for you. And it's like, no, I literally disappeared for 2 months to make this happen. Like, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's rough. Expect to put in a lot more work than you would think to pull it through.
If you were to build something for the next hackathon, what would you build?
Well, that's a spicy one. So I would strongly consider using internal. Actually, you just reminded me. There was some really good advice. So I talked to the OR team there, and one of the things that they mentioned, because they worked on Clockwork before this, if you're building a product whose success requires someone else to use your product, if your success depends on someone else's success, that could be like really problematic for you. So you want to pick a product that you don't have to rely on making someone else successful first. So this was kind of the downfall of Clockwork. And I think it was just kind of the first product of its kind. So anyways, that resonated with me. So if I was to do something different for the next hackathon, I would probably just have that mental check. Like, is this a product that requires developers to build another product that needs to be successful in order for me to be successful? If that's the case, it's probably a challenging one to build. But I don't have any particular recommendations. I would chase after things that haven't been done yet. So try, using data storage, for example, to enable activities that just haven't been done.
What would you say about the institutional side, focusing there, or
What do you mean by institutional?
like institutional focused applications versus consumer?
Right. I think if you're going to do that, you need to product test your application before you submit. Just see if there's anybody that wants to use this. Like if you're building something that requires an incumbent to no longer use the thing that they're comfortable with, that jump might be really hard for them to make if it's not 100 times better.
Are you thinking about, having hardware dedicated nodes, or just rely on others?
Are you asking if I'm thinking of reserving my own nodes as part of this network, or?
No. So technically, kind of manufacturing your own dedicated node for the network, or you just rely on
The Solana network, or?
Yeah.
So I think that's a difficult challenge. If you look at the last 5 years, Solana has like changed quite a bit. And with the Upland Glow coming out and with changes coming to even how accounts are done on Solana, I don't know that hardware, like by the time you get it out, you're like they would have moved on. So I think it's different than Bitcoin, for example, where the protocol itself has remained largely the same. So
No, I mean, as a storage provider to your network.
Right.
So right now, who's providing the storage to your network? Consumers, right?
Right. So the current situation on Solana is that there isn't really a storage network that exists that's really tied into the blockchain, but there is Pipe Network, and Pipe Network is a great CDN. They also have a storage layer, but Pipe Network requires on-prem hardware at the edge. So because they're a CDN, it requires special hardware. I want TAPEDRIVE to be something that anybody can run. So it's meant to be more ground up rather than like top down. You purchase a bunch of data center nodes and run them. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
You told that you know how to assemble a team of those developers.
Yeah.
At what point would you expand from a couple of workers to someone else? What are your ideal steps to find the best?
Yeah. So if you can't put into words the exact thing that needs to be built, and you can't envision what it looks like for that thing to be done, it's too early to hire somebody. So if it's a research project, probably don't hire somebody. Like you need to know exactly what you're building, and it doesn't even matter if it's a developer. Like if you have a task and you don't have a concrete vision of what it means to finish that thing, don't hire. Like basically, I would say hire at a point where you could build it, you just don't want to, because you've got other priorities. So
treat it like AI.
Yeah, exactly. Like basically don't hire until you can't not hire anymore. So that would be my advice. And I think a lot of founders have said similar things. This comes directly from Anatoly, by the way. Like he has said that several times where, he knew exactly, like he listed the 8 things or whatever it was initially that he needed to build, and he started building them, but it was just like, okay, I could do this, but I don't want to. So I'm going to find somebody else who can do it. And then because you know exactly what that thing is, you can analyze if the person that you've hired is doing a good job at building that. If you don't know the scope of it and you've hired somebody into that role, you're going to give them a frustrating time because they won't know what they need to build, which means, you've hired somebody, it's a frustrating experience for them because they don't know what they should be building. And yeah, basically don't do that to yourself or them. So. Any other questions?
Regarding launchpads, you mean like token launchpads? Because like I have like an idea of like, like there's a blueprint and then someone initializes it and takes ownership of it.
Yeah, so don't take like what I said is not like concrete, like don't ever do a launch pad. But if you do a launch pad, make sure your opening sentence includes why it's not, different, or why it's different than other launch pads that have come previously. Because you're going to be going up against, like there was something like 400 to 500 applicants who submitted launch pads last year or in the spring. So I imagine that trend will continue. So if you're doing a launch pad that is different somehow, just mention how it's different. I think there's still space for it. Like if you look at Heaven just launched, like they're basically a launch pad and they're doing pretty well. So thank you for the time today, guys.
Thanks, Steve.
No problem.
How long are you hanging out for?